Oh, hang on. They're there. Larry and Angie, I'll let them in.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry,
Angie.
got sidetracked. Okay.
1 and 2. All right, we got everybody. I see Angie's on mute and Larry's on mute. Are they in yet?
I'm here. Yep, I'm on.
All right, looks like we got everyone. So I've got 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Do we have any changes to the agenda, Ron?
No.
All right, no changes to the agenda.
Do you
Anybody
want
have any issues with it?
I'm sorry. Do you want to do the roll call style voting like we did last time?
Okay.
Yeah, we would need to.
Okay. All right. So we need the motion. I'm sorry.
Did anybody have any issues with the agenda?
No.
Do we have a motion
No.
to approve?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
You have a second?
Second.
All right. We'll go by roll call.
Okay. Counselor Bedwell,
Aye. Yes.
Counselor Caceres,
Aye.
Counselor Case,
Yeah. Yes.
Counselor Seha,
Yes.
Counselor Purdy,
Yes.
Counselor Sini,
You're on mute, Dilla.
Yes. Okay, and Mayor Clevenger.
Yes.
That is a unanimous vote.
So no public comment, no visitors, obviously.
Well, just a correction. Public comment was taken written comments. We forwarded those over to the council. I don't know if you have a tally on how many there was. I also received, I believe it was 3 comments by email. They asked not to be identified. They just wanted to express their opposition to the 2 items that were on the agenda. And I told them I would relay their message at that time.
Did they like at least provide an address or something?
Yeah, I mean, I have their names and addresses.
Okay. Okay. So you can verify that they are Aumsville residents.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I was going to hold off to going over what was submitted until we get to those items specifically.
Yeah. I just mentioned it because it was comment at the comment period.
Consent agenda. Everybody get a chance to read it? Anybody have any problems with it? Got a motion? Everybody's muted.
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda or the consent agenda as presented. Counselor Purdy.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
There we go.
Who was that who seconded?
That was me.
Okay.
Counselor Seha.
All right.
Okay.
All in favor by roll call?
Okay. Counselor Bedwell,
Yes.
Counselor Caceres,
Aye.
Counselor Case,
Yes.
Counselor Seha,
Yes.
Counselor Purdy,
Yes.
Counselor Sini,
Yes.
Mayor Clevenger.
Yes.
That is a unanimous vote.
And Mayor, can I just make a comment for those who are on the phone listening to the meeting?
Absolutely.
And so we're trying something different tonight. We had the council chambers open previously so that the community could come and participate. Nobody wanted to come and participate, which I do not blame them. We did have it set up to social distance. but people were concerned about that. We are limited on our technology. We're still checking into that and trying to upgrade that. When I mean technology, I mean our subscription to the Zoom service. We're going to see if there is a subscription that will provide a little bit more control. So I just wanted to apologize for anybody that's on the audio call. I hope that you can hear us. My understanding is it may be a little difficult to hear, and I apologize for that. We did want to try to provide some channel for the public to listen to this live. However, it is being recorded on the Zoom application, and we will post that on the city website. We should have that up by tomorrow, the meeting in its entirety. So I apologize for any technical difficulties in advance. We are working to make it better, and the meeting will be available after the fact. So.
Cool. So our wonderful big issues at hand. Before we dive into what I'm sure is going to be a lively conversation, I want to put a couple of things out there. One, this is a discussion that is centered solely around should these items go on the ballot. It is not centered around individuals' personal opinions. If someone doesn't like the police fee or doesn't like marijuana, frankly, I don't care. The conversation needs to stay centered around the pros and cons of these items going on the ballot, not individuals' personal beliefs on these two items. Okay. Going back to the information that we were all provided, well, let's just go into the first thing we were all sent first, which was the emails that we received. And I know that some of the emails were sent to everybody. Some of the emails were just sent to Ron. Some of them were just sent to me. I think Nico got a couple of emails. I had quite a few people who messaged me on Facebook, or who even just on the topics themselves were voicing their opinion on the subject. I went through by name. The total count that I came out with was a total of 69 individuals who voiced their opinion on these two subjects. We had a couple who were in favor of one but not the other. At my count, there was only 3 of them that expressed support for one and not the other. From that total, we had 43 who expressed support for both items being put on the ballot, and we had 27 who were against both items going on the ballot. The 3 individuals who expressed support for one and not the other, it was 3 who expressed support for the police fee to go on the ballot, but not for marijuana. That was the count that I got. I understand that everybody's individual counts based on messages they received and everything may be slightly different. One thing I want to point out, and I think some people probably saw the video that I did today, and we have repeatedly heard that social media is not a valid platform to discuss these items on. I want to directly point out that these numbers, 69 total, 42 for and 27 against, matches up with the poll that was conducted last year on social media. Frankly, I'm tired of hearing people say that social media is not a valid platform to discuss these items on. It is the largest communication platform in the world, and it is an extremely valid platform to discuss these items on, especially in a community the size of ours. It is very easy to determine who does and does not live in Aumsville. It's very easy to go have a conversation with half the people that are involved in the conversation on Facebook and talk to them face to face. So sitting here and trying to discredit social media as a platform to discuss these items is, frankly, in my opinion, ridiculous, and I kind of don't want to hear it because we've seen multiple times that it very much is. You all know my opinion. I am in favor for both of these items going on the ballot. As far as marijuana itself, I do think that, you know, $1 more than zero is a good idea for our budget. However, realistically, at the end of the day, I couldn't possibly care less if we have a dispensary in town. The public safety fee, I am 110% in support of the fee. I will use every amount of influence and pull and whatever I have in the community to ensure that our public safety fee stays. But both of these items deserve to be on the ballot. I'm hopping off my soapbox now. Anybody else have anything to say at all?
I'll say a couple things. First, I want all of you guys to know that I said it before, and I'll say it again. My opinion about marijuana is that I am not for it at all. But what I am for is people's right to vote. And what I've noticed over the last years is that this is a topic that the town seems to be almost equally divided. It fluctuates one way or the other. When something is so close in margin, I really feel that it's important to revisit these issues every few years. Some issues can be, we can talk about every 3 years, other issues 5 years, other issues 10 years. So when I see a poll or when I see voting that is like 48, 51, 60, 50, to me that tells me that there's enough want and diswant on both ends that we need to be looking at things periodically, especially in matters of revenue. So, like I said, my personal opinion about marijuana use, like Derek and I have had these conversations. Like I'm not for it, but what I am for is revisiting issues that need to be brought up periodically and bring it to vote. So that's why I think it's important to put both these issues on the ballot.
Did everybody get that? I kind of had a hard time hearing her.
For the most part.
Okay. Yeah, if you can just kind of type out, you know, the cliff notes of what you just said, Angie.
I think we got the gist of it, but her connection is a little off and on.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely want to hear from all of the counselors on this issue, if possible. I mean, if anybody wants to refrain from speaking, that's fine. But you guys mind if I just kind of tag you person by person and ask to give your individual spiel?
Sure.
Gus, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is first, let me just say this to the people who provided the feedback, that both people who personal messaged me, emailed me, got a few texts from folks. I got the Facebook stuff as well. First off is thank you for folks who responded. You know, people had some really good points in there. A couple of things I would take away from that is on the safety fee per se. I know we're not talking about that, but it'll come up a little bit later. But a couple of comments were around the foreclosure piece and the low income and trying to have a system for low income and whatnot. And it's clear that, and I want to go back to what Nico said once during one of our meetings, that we really should do a video around the safety fee and what it means and how it works and whatnot. Because there are some things that people brought up in the emails to me that I'm like, hey, we already fixed that. You know, like the foreclosure piece in particular, this council helped to fix that. And I sat on the committee with a couple of citizens from Aumsville with Ron, and then it came before this council to fix that issue. And I know before COVID-19, Ron was working through looking at a tier system. And so we were doing some things that people had already asked. And so I just want to make sure that somehow we get that out and communicate it, because I believe there's some people who still have some old information. On the marijuana thing, and I know Mayor Cleaver, you're not going to agree with this, and that's fine. But the reality is people ask for it to be voted on, and it's been voted on twice. And the last vote was 3.5 years ago. So it was literally in 2016, in November of 2016, when it was voted on. I like the idea, like Angie said, of revisiting things, but something like that, I would say revisit it in a decade, not so soon. And that's just my thought pattern of talking with people and the feedback that I've received from folks who are against putting it on the ballot. On that note, the other piece that came up during the conversation is the challenge of, if we did have a dispensary, where would it be in city of Aumsville? There's a lot of regulations around that, a lot of provisions. It'd be a little bit challenging and seems counterproductive to me to allow for something to happen that really can't happen or is very arduous to happen. How is that business friendly? So just like Mayor Clevenger, you've been very clear about where you stand and whatnot. I'm going to tell you honestly, I stand at a place that we've already voted on that. That's a done deal. I don't think we need to be bringing it back to the ballot at this time.
And I would point out with that last vote that occurred in 2016, that vote was separated by 15 people. We have grown by over 600 since then.
And I'm tracking with what you're saying on that. Again, like I said, I'm not opposed to bringing it back to the table in a decade.
Okay. Della, I'd love to hear from you. If you're done, Gus, I don't want to cut you off.
Uh-oh, we lost Della.
I have spent much time this last month going around and visiting people in different parts of town, and I've not had anyone personally tell me that they want this brought back to a vote for either party, either item.
Okay.
So that's what I can tell you on my research. And none of the people that I talk to are ones that have sent in comments.
I'm trying to picture in my head how we all sit. So, Larry?
Yeah, so I as well have talked to a considerable number of people in the last month about this issue, well over 100. And I've yet to have anybody tell me that they wanted to put it on the ballot other than the written comments that we've received. One of the things that I want to make sure is clear too is it's been implied that some members of the council are trying to take the right to vote away from people. That's certainly not the case. We are part of a constitutional republic. We are not a straight democracy where everybody gets to vote on everything. As a constitutional republic, we elect our representatives to vote on things for us. Some of us on council were elected, some were appointed. Either way, we have the same ability to represent the people of our community. So if people want to vote on this, they absolutely have the right to. They can do it through a grassroots effort to put it on the ballot. They don't have to wait for city council to choose to put it on the ballot for them. If they don't like the opinions and the representation that they're getting from their representatives on city council? Experience shows they have the right to recall members. They have the right to not vote for them in the future. But the whole argument that people are being deprived of the right to vote is, so having said that, this is obviously an issue that's dividing our community. There's a large number of people on both sides of it. Like the mayor said, it was a close election last time around. And I haven't seen anything indicating written testimony we've received. I haven't seen anything to indicate to me that the outcome would come any different. We have many large issues confronting this council right now. We're dealing with the emergency order and closure of our businesses and our community parks and other areas. I don't see a whole lot of conversation going on about that. We've got multi-million infrastructure projects that we need to be dealing with. I don't think it's reasonable for us to be rehashing issues at this time, maybe down the road. I don't disagree that we could revisit this at some point down the road, but not right now. I don't think it's prudent for us to be spending staff's time and money to be considering something like this right now when we've got so many other pressing issues in front of us. So, I certainly don't intend on going into my personal feelings on either one of these issues that are before us. But like I said in our previous meeting, and I'll say again tonight, I don't think this is the time. And I'm opposed to moving forward with putting it on the ballot right now.
I have a couple of questions, if you wouldn't mind, Larry. In your opinion, is contacting city government officials not a grassroots effort?
I didn't say that.
Well, and I'm not implying that you did, but you said that community members could do a grassroots effort. I can attest to the fact that the grassroots effort for the recall started with talking to our city government officials, and that didn't work. And so that's why a recall happened. So people reaching out to me, reaching out to Nico, reaching out to Angie, sending us the emails that we got, that is a grassroots effort. And that is exactly what the community is doing on this issue.
And that's the same that Della got responses, Gus got responses, I got responses. I don't know about Jim yet at this point. Mm-hmm. Not everybody chooses to come down on the side where they just want to contact you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm well aware of that. I never implied that they did.
Their opinions and input as well.
Mm-hmm. I never implied otherwise, Larry. As far as nobody reaching out to you in favor, do you have access to Facebook?
It's none of your business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Did you read any of the posts that were in regards to the flyer that you put out? Because in those posts, multiple people did express that they wanted this to go to the ballot. In fact, it was overwhelmingly in support of this going to the ballot as opposed to not going to the ballot. So I would ask, as far as who you have been talking to, are you talking to people that you are well aware are like-minded, or are you going out of your way to talk to individuals that may have a different opinion than you?
Well, I'll start with your first question about reading the posts. Mm-hmm. I don't frequent the Aumsville Community Connection page or any other community pages. I don't frequent your page to see what you're spewing out at the time. None of that's of interest to me. If from what I've heard from other people is that there's been some robust debate on some of those platforms, and that's fine. I've talked face-to-face to people.
So you're well aware that there is robust debate going on community pages about this topic, and you're choosing not to frequent them?
Yes, there's many things I choose not to do. I know there's robust debate.
No, that's
Local
fine,
tavern, and
Larry.
I choose not to go there to
answered
listen
my
to you.
question.
You can't shut me down, Mr. Mayor.
I'm not shutting you down. You answered
What
my
I'm
question.
saying doesn't mean you get a chance to talk over the top of me. I've been very cordial to you and let you speak your piece. I expect the same respect from you, although I know you don't like to show it to people.
Larry, I'm being respectful. I let you know that you answered my question. I don't see how
Talking
that is
over the top of me.
disrespectful.
I'm done, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. At last, I would just point out that us discussing these issues does not in any way, shape, or form preclude us from discussing other issues as well. If anybody wanted any of those other issues on the agenda, all you have to do is ask. We can discuss them at length. So discussing the marijuana moratorium, discussing the public safety fee, in no way stops us from running down any other issues. While we were having these conversations, we got the website up, right? That's something that's been in the works for quite some time. So the idea that we're wasting time on this instead of other things is complete bull. We are still getting other things done.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask you a question?
Sure, Larry.
So if we choose to go forward with this and put this on the ballot,
Uh-huh.
who does that?
Who puts it on the ballot?
Who does the legwork? Who does the legwork to get it put on the ballot? Who does that legwork?
Initially, the bulk of the legwork is done by our city staff, and then it's sent off to the city attorney for review, and then it's sent off to the Secretary of State for review as well. So there's legwork for multiple different agencies.
Okay, so if the city staff and our attorneys have to do this, then doesn't that necessarily take them away from time they could spend working on the infrastructure issues that we're facing? $21 million sewer system?
We have plenty of city staff. We have a number of them. We are not limited to one person. And our city staff are highly intelligent individuals that are capable of multitasking, Larry.
Nobody's objecting to that. What I'm saying is they're not, we would be asking them to split their time between something that is vitally important to this community's survival, which is keeping our infrastructure up to date, bringing it up to standard so the city doesn't get fines from DEQ, versus spending time on a ballot initiative that we could do at any time other than during this time when we've got an emergency order and other important issues facing us.
Is responding to a grassroots effort from community members something that's not worth our time? Is that not of vital importance to us as elected representatives? Should we not be addressing the issues that the community wants us to address, as well as those vital infrastructure issues? Because I think we can do both.
Well, and I don't think it's one or the other, like you say.
It's not.
Because
I'm glad we agree on that.
Because you're talking to people apparently that tell you one thing. I'm talking to people that tell me differently. So because it's a split community. It's split opinions over these matters. And so if there's no clear direction from the community on which way to go.
Now, Larry, if you had been frequenting those Facebook pages where the robust debate is occurring, you would see that I have heard from a number of individuals that are not in favor of this. But I have also heard from an overwhelming majority of individuals, at least that frequent those pages, that are in favor of this. Now, if we go back, I conducted that one poll, I believe it was in January or February of last year. There was 247 in favor of this going on the ballot and 178 not in favor of this item going on the ballot. Interestingly enough, that matches up to the same data we got today.
So, Mr. Mayor,
so twice now, the community has asked us to address these issues, and you are arguing that we should not do it.
I'm not arguing that some segments of the community may want it revisited.
Oh, you're wanting it kicked down the road later on, which is what got us into the mess with a lot of these other problems as well. We have the ability to address issues that the community wants us to address right now. It's not hard. It's low-hanging fruit.
Are you done talking over the top of me so I can talk again?
Larry, actually, you started talking over me, but go right ahead there.
So, again, I understand that there is maybe a segment of the community that wants us to revisit the issue. I've not heard from that segment. So just because you're telling me that you've got some survey that has all this information, you haven't provided any of that statistics or documentation to council. You keep referring to it, but I haven't seen it.
I offered that to the council at the last meeting, Larry. You didn't ask for it. Gus did. I provided Gus with a number of names as well as access to the poll so that he could see all of those numbers. That was offered at the last meeting. You never approached me for that information, Gus. Which to me honestly implies that you have a confirmation bias and you're only wanting to speak to individuals that agree with you.
I'm not interested in your opinion of me, Mr. Mayor. If you were willing to provide information to one council member, it would have been nice for all of us to have it.
I offered it to the entire council. Gus was the only one that asked for it. Now, if I would have sent a mass email out to everyone, I believe that would have actually constituted a quorum. So I left it for individual council members to ask me for that information. Gus took the time to ask me for that information and I provided it. Now, if you didn't do your due diligence to ask for that information, you can't demonize me for it, and you can't turn around and argue that the statistics that I have available are somehow invalid because you did not ask for them.
I did not argue that.
That is what you implied, that I have some statistics that I wouldn't give to the council. I offered it to everybody. You didn't ask for it, Larry. That's on you.
Yeah, I'm done with you.
Okay. Jim, I'd love to hear your opinion.
I've heard enough of the arguing back and forth, and from everybody else I've talked to, I'm ready to vote. Let the votes fall where they do.
Okay. Nico?
My hope's to not make, anybody too pissed off at me because, I really want to have a productive discussion over this. The last thing I want to do is butt heads with anyone, but I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to folks. And I feel I have a little bit of authority on this issue because I've been before the voters 3 times now, 2012, 2016, and 2018. I'm not trying to toot my horn, but, we knocked on hundreds of doors, both in 2016 and especially in 2018, as far as the recall and my campaign goes. And I can definitely tell you with 100% certainty that the demographics of our community have changed. We definitely have new families that have moved here, different individuals, kind of all walks of life, come from different parts of the state that have moved here. So Aumsville's flavor has changed, especially since 2016. And, most of the comments I did get when I went going door to door was some people talked about the marijuana issue and, that's, of importance, of course, but a lot of people talked about the public safety fee and it being a situation where it came down to transparency. And to me, that's what this whole discussion should come down to. We had the recall because our government was not transparent enough. It was not open enough. It did not allow enough public comment regarding these issues. And no matter whether you're appointed or elected, whoever is on this council should understand that. It came down to an issue of transparency and honesty. And it definitely, I think, showed that people weren't going to put up with a situation where they were going to just be spoon-fed, information, just be told a certain narrative regarding policy. And I don't know if you guys have checked lately our charter, but we're a quasi-judicial body. We're a policy-making body. That's our job. Our job is to create policy. So it's kind of silly to have arguments, I think, regarding whether we don't have time for something or whether now is a good time or 10 years is a better time. I think it's really irrelevant. I will say that, it's pretty obvious in a lot of the policies that we've kind of been backed into a corner as far as our infrastructure goes, because a lot of it's been kicked down the road. And I think that that's a mentality that we just need to shed. And I think regardless if it's the marijuana issue or the public safety fee, transparency is incredibly important at this time. And that's the number one issue that people presented to me when I went door to door was honesty. There are a lot of people that support our police, and there are a lot of people that will support this fee, but I think it comes down to being open with them as far as what the need is, what the financial need is, but also what's involved in the everyday workings of our police department. And I think that if we can continue to kind of be open and encourage open communication, be it the newsletter as well as doing videos, I think that only benefits us in the long term. I 100% support putting the public safety fee and the marijuana issue to a vote, because it gives people a sense of buy-in to our government. This is their government, whether or not they like us or they like the mayor or myself or any of us individually. This is their government, and they do need to have that opportunity to weigh in on a financial decision that impacts them. And I hope that out of this, we have a robust conversation regarding public safety, because to me, that's incredibly important to not just the livability of our town, but for our community and its future as a whole. And I think that we need to go out of our way to solicit public opinion, as well as get as much information as we can, so our citizens are aware of what the costs are if the fee goes away. That we leave ourselves vulnerable potentially, if we don't have a fully staffed police force. But at the end of the day, since it's a financial issue that affects them and, is a part of their bottom line and their bills, they do deserve the ability to be able to weigh in on the issue. So you guys know where I stand on that. I spent my entire campaign saying that it should go to a public vote. And, I got a lot of support from people because of that. And my hope is that we can send it to the voters and be able to cement that piece of policy in place the way it should have been done originally. In my opinion, the situation is kind of a cleanup job, to be quite honest, because the council should have taken the time to better inform the citizens and put it before them, not just take this negative, I know what I'm talking about, I know what's good for you, and the recall is a testament to the fact that people aren't going to put up with that. So I'm hoping we can kind of go forward and be able to send this out to the voters and be able to get the job done.
Cool. Thank you. Everybody pretty much already has their opinions figured out, I think. Hang on one second. We need to take a break. My dogs are fighting.
It must be the energy from the meeting. They must feel that energy, so they're probably fighting now.
You're still muted, Derek.
Sorry about that. Dogs are going to do what they're going to do. I think everybody's opinions on this matter are pretty much already formulated, As far as the marijuana issue specifically, do we have a motion? Do we want to take a vote? What do we want to do?
I'll make a motion that we do not refer either the marijuana moratorium or the public safety fee to the ballot.
Can we make
We
them
haven't
two
really gotten in depth into the safety fee, so I'm hoping that we can do these separately, if that's okay.
Can I jump in here, Mayor?
Yes.
So I just want to throw out some recommendations for motions, if that's okay. Typically, you would not make a motion as a negative motion. So a motion could be made to move these to the ballot, and that motion may not receive a majority of votes and will die in of itself. Or motion could be made to table this for a period of time that could be set in the motion. That could be voted on as a motion. Either of those two motions would work on this, but this is kind of a consensus, so there's not really a hard rule, but typically we wouldn't make a motion in the negative. So I'll just defer to those who want to make a motion. And you know, somebody could just table this. It's not a debatable motion if that's the direction versus a negative motion, or somebody can make a motion to move it forward.
Do we just go ahead and take a vote? Are we putting it on the ballot or not? Let's make this clear. Let's get rid of any other little political things that may come out of this. Let's just take a vote. Are we putting it on the ballot or not?
Can we make that? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me all right? Can we make them two different motions?
It is two different agenda items.
Different issues.
So I'm wanting to vote on these separately. Is anybody opposed to us just voting? Yes or no? Is the marijuana thing going on the ballot?
Just to keep things clear here, I will withdraw my motion based on Ron's advice of it not being a negative motion. So that motion's off the table.
Larry, you could motion to table indefinitely. That would be the same thing as the motion that you referred, but in a positive manner. As the mayor suggests, somebody could make a motion to move this to the ballot and then just see if it lives or dies.
I'd like to make the motion to move the, what is it called?
Marijuana moratorium.
Marijuana moratorium. I move to make a motion to move the marijuana moratorium to the ballot.
Do we have a second?
And can I have a point of discussion?
Yes.
So, Mayor, if this motion passed, the way that the intent of the motion would be is that you would be directing the city administrator to draft a ballot measure. You would not be moving to put it on the ballot. That
Correct.
Could not be done until a ballot measure is drafted and has been
reviewed and everything else. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're all clear on what we're actually voting on, correct?
Yes.
So do we want to go ahead and take a vote by roll call?
Okay. Councillor Bedwell.
No.
Councillor Casares.
Aye.
Councillor Case.
No.
Councillor Seha.
Yes.
Purdy.
No.
Councillor Sini.
No.
Mayor Clevenger.
Yes.
Okay, the vote is 3 yes, no, no's are 4.
All right, moving on. So public safety fee, same thing. We'll just go by person and say your piece on it. I think based on my impression, a vast majority of us are support of the fee in essence. It's just a discussion of whether it should go on the ballot or not. You know, this fee not going on the ballot is what sparked the recall. Whether it's a popular opinion or not, it not going on the ballot made the community mad, right? We have the ability to correct that. We have the ability to reassure the community that their voices will be heard by us. As I've stated multiple times, I'm in favor of the fee. I will do everything in my power, whatever influence I have, I will talk to as many people as I need to try and keep this fee in place, because I do think it is important. But I think the importance of this going on the ballot is demonstrating to the community that our city government is making strides and doing what we need to do to change the paradigm about our city government and to change the view of us as a whole to one that is inclusive of our community and wants our community feedback. So, Gus, you want to go first?
So, Mayor Clevenger, I'll say you and I can agree on the fact that we both support the police fee. And in a majority, not all, but in a majority of individuals that I talked to, whether they wanted it on the ballot or not wanted it on the ballot, they were in support of the police fee. And so that was very, very encouraging to hear. The other piece is that I go back again to the fact that there was some things that were said about how the ordinance was originally written and the work we have done as a council, i.e. listened to the people and made those changes to make the ordinance a little bit more user-friendly, less about foreclosing on somebody's house. And the fact that as council directed Ron to start looking at that tier system as a possibility for those who are struggling with the water. So I think we have been responsive. I think this council has been responsive to the request of the previous council. The one thing that I'm a little challenged on is that, and you may not be aware of, but about the same time that the police fee was being discussed in council and the public hearings were put out there and were properly per charter presented to the public, i.e. they could have presented them in more spots. I won't disagree with that, but the bottom line is the charter at time was, and they fulfilled that charter in the state rules. I actually attended some of those meetings, in part because I was learning more about the council. I was learning more about planning commission. I attended the meetings where you were at a couple of different times. So I'm not unaware of what happened. What I will offer is that the previous city council did follow the guidelines and the rules that were set forth for public hearings and notifications. They didn't hide anything. I'm sorry, there was no dishonesty. I know that's been thrown around a couple of times, but I, as a citizen, did not see that. Everybody in town did receive newsletters, and there were public notices, and it was in different locations. And I know the council members connected with folks as well. And then again, like I said, there's a majority of people who support this police fee. I think that putting it on the ballot to get a yes answer is just kind of not a good use of time, considering the time that we have spent to make the changes. I think what we could do is, and I go back to Nico's comment about a video, is I think that we could do a video about the police fee and have it explained. This is where your $12 go. This is how it's being spent. Because I will say, in talking with folks, there is some confusion around the police fee. Are we paying for one officer, or are we paying for 3 officers? And so I think that there's some value in having a little bit more transparency and communication in that and moving that forward. I also think explaining to folks that the $12 is not a $12 for the rest of time. That is, Ron has explained that to this council multitude of times. And I think if we can explain that and get that out to the community as well. So I really, again, I appreciate people who gave me the feedback for and against. And I definitely heard some things that I thought we can take forward into our next future meetings around this topic. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Angie, I see your written comment. Do you have anything to add to that?
Can you guys hear me okay? I turned off other stuff that was streaming to hopefully bump up my internet.
Everything you're saying is just coming across really slow.
Say this. Okay. I really feel that this was a tax, and I feel that taxes should be voted on.
Short and sweet and to the point.
Yeah.
Della?
Again, I talked to many people about this, and every person that I spoke to in new communities, older parts of town, everything, felt that it was a waste of time to be bringing this to the voters.
Larry?
I will also like to thank everybody that provided me with input on it, as well as those that provided written input to council. I won't go any further other than to echo what Councilor Bedwell said earlier. He represented my stance almost perfectly. So I don't know if there's anything further for me to say on it. Thank you.
Jim?
I think that what we really have not done is give the alternative to not having this police fee. And that would have said, well, what kind of coverage are we going to have if we don't have a police fee? And what are we going to do if it's voted out? The other alternative to keep the same services is going to be a fee no matter what. It's going to be just called a government fee or anything else. I just think we made a mistake there and not saying this is what the alternative is if we don't have this fee. And I don't want to be doomsday, that type of thing, but I just want it out there that if you want the same services you got now, we are limited on the money strictly because our money really comes from property tax. And a property tax system is limited, period. If it gets too high, then they, compress it. So we don't get the money anyway. That's the only thing I say. I've got my name made. I think it's a no-brainer what the decision was made, and I think we should just stick with it.
Nico?
So forgive my language, council, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Let's not half-ass this. I think that, I think the last council really opened the door to some anxiety that voters have that, that more fees are going to be added, more additional taxes are going to be added, potentially. This opened the door for them to be added without a lot of feedback from the city. And, I'm sorry not to respectfully disagree with Gus Bedwell on his comments. They held a couple of public meetings, but by and large, we had several counselors, and that's why the recall happened. We had several counselors that acted very nasty to audience members, to citizens, to people that they represent, and that's why some of them are no longer on the council. And I'm not sure if folks have a short memory, but that's what happened. We had a lot of negative feedback from some of those counselors, and they're not on this body anymore because they were bashing their citizens and not truly representing their interests. That's why the recall happened. I mean, we didn't open up a genie bottle and just didn't magically appear that these counselors just went away. It created a lot of angst and anxiety with our citizens that, okay, well, this happened. How, is this going to open the door for other fees to, be, shoved down my throat with a little feedback or a little notice at all? And I think it's a huge warning to us as, their representatives. If you want something, if you need something bad, you give the honest view of what your situation is. You give them all the information you have so they have a picture of what's happening. The relationship we have with our citizens is no different than a husband and wife or, a friend relationship. You are open and honest with the people you represent, and that's what needs to happen. And I think that no matter what the circumstance is, that should be what government does, period, is just, there needs to be an open, transparent, honest conversation about what our operations are, about what the public safety means to providing 24-hour coverage, what the alternatives are if we don't have that in place. and it's a good warning to all of us to not go down that road again. So, you know, I feel like, you know, we need to finish the job, get it done, and, you know, get this fee implemented the correct way, the way it was supposed to have been done the first time, by giving the people the chance to weigh on it themselves and to be honest about what that fee does and where the money goes and how it's incredibly important to our operations as a city, not just from a public safety perspective, but from a budgetary perspective. And I'm hoping that we can use that as a springboard to discuss more issues. I mean, you guys brought up infrastructure earlier. I mean, that's a huge elephant in the room. You know, there are other cities that charge storm drainage fees, you know, in their utility bills. There's other cities that do other infrastructure fees to be able to get money, to be able to finance these things. Those are things that potentially may need to be on the table in order to finance the projects that we need done. We can't do it from taxes alone. So I think the more that we are open with our citizens and the more that we are transparent with them regarding the public safety fee, the better. So I 100% support the fee being put out to the voters and giving them the chance to weigh the issue and putting the responsibility in our hands to communicate the importance of why we need it and why it's incredibly necessary for us to be able to provide the level of service that our citizens expect. That's how I feel about it.
So Angie asked me to read her comment on here just to make sure that it's part of the video and in the record and everything. The first comment is, Angie states, I feel this is a tax and should have been on the ballot in the first place. I feel the community wants to vote on it and they support it, but people want to vote on it. I, as a voter, want to vote on it. So that is the statement from Councillor Seha. I would like to bring up a couple of things, and one is, yes, the previous council did meet all of the legal requirements. They met the minimum. And I don't know about all of you, but I am very much someone that doing the minimum is not good enough. That has always been my mindset in any work that I do. Doing the minimum is not good enough. All of you have heard me advocate for our minimum to be much higher. I have advocated for our city charter to be amended so that our minimum is much higher. A member of the previous council actually openly admitted in conversation about this at a council meeting that they were aware that the newsletter, at least at the time, only had maybe about 5% readership. So going back to that whole topic, the previous council did do the minimum. I don't think that the time to educate people on why we are taking their money is after we take their money. The time to educate people on why we are taking their money is before we give them the option to give us their money. And for us as this council to sit here and maintain an attitude that that is our money to take is disgusting, all right? This is the community's money. And the community should have a direct say on whether we are going to take their money or not. What we spend their money on is their decision, not ours. And for us to sit here and hold some sort of idea that we know better is doing a disservice to our community. Yes, we need to educate them. But the fact of the matter is, when this fee was first implemented, it was not done with enough community feedback. It was not done in a manner that the community was in support of. And that's why that entire council, save for one member, is gone. Because the community was not satisfied with how this council went about their business. And for us to have the ability to correct that and to take a mindset that we are not going to do it is frankly disgusting, in my opinion. So we can take a vote on this matter, or people can say whatever they want. Are we going to vote by roll call again?
I'd like to just say, you know, I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for misrepresenting what people have said again. But more importantly, my question is what Councilor Case brought up. What is the plan if it goes on the ballot and is voted down and that safety fee is taken back? So how
I'm glad you asked that. If it's voted down, that means the community doesn't want 24-hour service, Larry. It's that simple. They didn't get the chance to answer that question before, because the council decided to act unilaterally and not give the community a voice. It is very clear.
You just admitted the community had a voice.
The community votes this down, then that is proof that the community does not want 24-hour coverage, and we would be irresponsible to continue spending their money on something that they do not want. We can all agree that 24-hour coverage is fantastic, but if the community as a whole says that they do not want it, we are in no place to spend their money in that manner.
Mayor Clevenger, can I ask you a question, please?
Yes, Gus.
Okay, this is a professional setting. We are supposed to be professional diplomats and elected officials in this conversation. Of all of us who have had a disagreement, literally you're the only one yelling. I ask that you please stop doing that.
That's not going to happen.
That is not appropriate to the rest of the council. And it's actually disparaging and against our charter, which says what we're not going to do to fellow council members.
We can have an executive session next time and talk about it. Not going to happen, Gus.
Just like I am treating you with some respect and not raising my voice or being out of character, I would ask that you do that with the rest of the council, please.
Not going to happen, Gus.
To kind of chime in on Councilor Purdy's comment, anything budgetary related, especially anything policy related, the burden of proof is on that government body. And so that means that the burden of proof is on the city to be communicative, to be open on what the impact is if the 24-hour coverage doesn't happen. That's what it's about. That's how it is, all across the state. It doesn't matter if it's, this fee or if it's a public safety levy. Right now you're seeing the fire districts, the school boards, they're communicating their needs. It's the same with city government. And the burden has always been on the city government to communicate the need for the public safety fee. And that continues, especially if we actually have it go to a vote. And I think having clean cut information, having multiple, levels of, what that would look like from not just a budgetary standpoint, but from a policing standpoint, I think is important. I think we need to have those kind of conversations. And that's what the responsibility of government is. Anytime there's a new fee implemented, there needs to be a conversation about why that money is needed, what the impact is without that money, and why people need to be a part of that process, because that's what it's about. That's what our job is. Our job is to make policy. So it's on us as councilors and as the city as a whole to be open and honest with our public regarding this fee. So that's where it comes from. And I think having facts, having some information would go a long way versus, going down the road of having scare tactics or, oh my God, this will happen if the fee fails. And I think that it gives us an opportunity to really turn the page and to be open and honest with our citizens.
So at a risk of jumping in here, I guess I just do need to jump in here, but everything tells me just to be quiet and not jump in here. But I do just want to leave the council members with at least what I think the correct impression of the process was. We started talking about the public safety fee. Well, not the public safety fee, but the shortfall in the police department at the first meeting in January of 2017. I came into office in midsummer, and I spent the first several months evaluating the current state of the city, from infrastructure to finances. And I provided that evaluation at that first meeting. And at that first meeting, I let council know that we could not only could not we sustain the current level of service that we were providing the city. But if we continued without some action or some plan, that we would be needing to scale back even further beyond minimum operations. And we spoke about possible alternatives at the next council meeting. We actually spoke at it at a number of council meetings. I wrote at least 2 articles in the newsletter, and I believe the mayor may have written something during that time period where we were trying to figure out how to address the shortfall. Public safety fee was a discussion, but it wasn't a direction at that point. And we had those discussions through the summer, and those articles were printed through the summer. And I think it was in August, if memory serves me correctly, council was actually considering an action, and we discussed it. And I said, I think we need to give the community, this is an issue that really needs to be discussed more in the community, and we need to discuss it for a few more months. We did that. Council members reached out to members of the community within their network. I mean, I don't know which constituents council members reached out to, but they did. I spoke to people that would ask about the issue at City Hall, and I know the chief visited many businesses in town. We did a fairly robust outreach program. We did not do a social media outreach. I don't think there was a lot of social media savvy people at that time, or if that was a platform everybody was accustomed to. Obviously, over the last couple of years, more people have become more accustomed to that. And then it was voted on in, I don't recall the exact date, but I want to say it was November of the end of that year. And it was intended to be on the bills in January. Now, we had quite a few people that attended meetings and gave an opinion one way or the other. And then I sent a letter to every home because I wanted them to know that this fee was going to appear on their bill, and not everybody is always in tune or plugged into what government is doing, even though we did all of these processes. I didn't want it to be a surprise. In hindsight, I would say that I wish I would have thought about sending that direct mail piece out earlier in the process. That probably is an error on my judgment or my part, but I wish I would have done it. And then there was after that point that there started to be the more political discussions or opinions of how the process unfolded. But I just wanted the council to have that little historical perspective. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with anybody's perception. Your perceptions all may be perfectly valid for, you know, a point in time somewhere. But there was a pretty, and it wasn't a minimum effort. Under our charters, literally all we had to do was have a public hearing and vote on it. And we could have done that at one meeting. We discussed this, and I don't know the number of meetings, but I will say throughout the year, it was multiple times, and there were multiple articles in the newsletter written about it and discussed about it at council meetings. So there was some effort there. In hindsight, could we have done a better community outreach? Yes. I certainly realize that now, but of course nobody really knows what is going to be the issue of the day until it becomes the issue of the day, right? And the realization that councils can have the community vote on all of these issues is really a difficult perspective. As a matter of fact, a lot of them, it would really be irrelevant because some things that we do are mandated. But having said all of that, I did just want to say that there was an effort, depending on when you entered the process of that effort. It may have seemed like there was little effort, but there was a process.
I do want to bring up one thing though, Ron. This is a conversation that you and I have had on a couple of occasions, right? Context is important, and what you are asking people is important. I have no doubts that the chief and you and multiple council members from the previous council went and asked people questions. And this was brought up even during the recall. And yes, we have addressed the issue since then. But the question that was asked, by and large, my understanding is, how do you feel about 24-hour police coverage? Not, would you like 24-hour police coverage or to have your water shut off? And that therein lies the inadequacy in the discussion that was being had. Okay?
Yeah,
and this
I
goes
think
back to the education piece as well, educating the community on what the alternatives are. Now, we've corrected that in the language of the public safety fee. We've corrected the foreclosure language. I understand that, and we are making strides to correct this situation. I would advocate for, even if we choose not to put this on the ballot, or I believe there was another option you had discussed, Ron, about a kind of administrative vote thing that just occurred in town. And I've advocated for it before, looking at our city charter. I mean, the Oregonian wrote an entire editorial after our recall about cities implementing fees of this nature and how these fees should not be meant to be indefinite. They shouldn't last forever and have no caps and those sorts of things. And I think that if it was in the language of our city charter that yes, the council does have the power to implement these fees when necessary, but also attaching to that, there is a set amount of time before it is required to go on the ballot. And there is a cap for how much money we can be taking from community members without directly getting their voice on the matter. I think that would go over a lot better with community members. You know, that one, the communication piece was poor. Two, the fee in the way it was written was poor, and that rubbed a lot of community members the wrong way. So even if we are not going to put this on the ballot, we do have the ability to look forward to the future and say, how are we still going to be able to do what's best for the community, but also ensure we're doing it in a way that the community is going to be responsive to, and isn't going to result in everybody, you know, a whole recall and people getting booted out of office again. I mean, obviously we need to do things better. We can't do things the same way.
Well, and Mayor, I think we are, and I think there's a lot of credit owed to this council for looking at some of the, and I won't call them errors, but we learned how to do things differently than the city had previously done them. And I think the new website that just launched today that we're going to actually see and talk about here in a few minutes is one of those transparency tools. How we approach the public is another transparency tool. You know, I'm a very open administrator. I talk to anybody that wants to come to City Hall and talk to me. They call me late at night. I answer the phone. I publish my number because we do want to have, even if people aren't looking for it until a certain point of time, it's always got to be there, that point of transparency. I do think that we've discussed with our new website, putting together some promotional or educational videos on how things work, because oftentimes, you know, the public only hears something like a fee. They don't really understand the total makeup or background or rationale or reasons behind that. And they don't want to sit through 3-hour council meetings. I mean, nobody that, unless you're involved in it, are you really dying to do that? So we've got to come up with ways that get that information out to the public better. And I definitely agree with that. And we are we are doing that. I don't know that going down the road of changes of the city charter. As a matter of fact, I've checked in on this, and there's a couple of other cities that have tried this. Largely, those changes have been appealed and ruled out of context, so they're not valid if they violate state law. I think if there was something that would need to be done, if somebody wanted to go through a legislative process, it probably needs to be done at the state level to try to affect change there. But I also do know that this council and myself have made a pledge when these issues come up related to fees for services or things within the community, that we're approaching these different. We're not bringing these up at a council meeting for discussion, or even one or two council meetings. Now we're doing social media blasts. We're going out to public events. We're discussing these. We're really doing a good outreach today, much better than we had been able to do in the past. And some of that is just the way we've reorganized City Hall. So I do think there's the opportunity for things to work much more efficiently than they had been in the past, just based on the limitations. I mean, look at the city's technology. We literally did not have one computer inside City Hall that would speak with another computer 3 years ago. We had no universal platform, and our servers crashed on a semi-regular basis. And now we can host this fantastic website. We can communicate with folks. We can stream videos. We can speak with each other on a nice, consistent platform. And we're only improving that as time goes on, and plan to improve that. So I think the tools are there. I think we just need to use those tools better. And I'll get out of this conversation. I probably have entered too much of the conversation at this point.
I think we all appreciate your input, Ron. And my only concern with what you had said is, yes, this council, in my opinion, even though we disagree, this council has done a much, much, much better job than previous councils at actually communicating with the community. Prior to the recall, a vast majority couldn't have picked a single city councilor or the mayor out of a lineup if he had a gun to their head. I mean, and now they can. I mean, we've gone out to Saturday markets. We have made an effort to communicate with the community, and people know who the individuals on this council are. My concern is that we are overtly communicating with the community because we were put in a position where it was very apparent that needed to happen. But if we aren't making any real sort of policy change that requires that to happen in some way, how long does that last? How long do we have a council that has that culture before we start going back to a council that isn't effectively communicating with the community? And that's why I would push for some sort of policy change or charter change or whatever it is we need to do if we are not going to take this issue specifically and put it to a vote, right? We have to do something that at the very least shows the community that we're gonna be better. We're gonna do better. We're not gonna make the same mistakes that happened in the past. And if we don't make some sort of policy change, if we don't put this issue on the ballot, we haven't actually done anything to require that change for future councils.
Can I weigh in here for just a second, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Chief, what's up?
Okay, I believe what you're saying and stuff and being transparent. We've tried to be very transparent with the police department, but I also am concerned about the possibility of putting this on a ballot because I think that it's reckless. I think that putting this on there could cost, by your own statements and your policies, it could cost us 2 or 3 officers, and this is not a time to be losing police officers. I think that the issues that originally came up on this was the foreclosure and shutting off your water, and the council adequately dealt with those issues. And so you have made strides. You have tried to listen to what the community said, But to move forward right now and try to put this out there is not a good time to be doing this. This is a time that we need to make sure that we have our public safety and that we continue to make people safe in our community. And if there's no plan in place as to what we're going to do, and we lose 3 officers, that's devastating, to the public safety of the city. And I just, I would hate to see us to do that. Now, I will live by what you say, by what
I
the
don't disagree.
say, but,
We're on the same page.
and I know that you support it. But Derek, like I said, I'm concerned, that throwing this out there at this time is quite frankly a reckless thing.
Chief, we don't get to choose how we spend the community's money. All right, the community tells us how they want us to spend their money, and if this gets voted down, that is the community telling us.
And we will live, and I would live with whatever the community decided.
I understand that losing those 2 or 3 officers would be detrimental to our community, and like I said, I want this fee to stay, and I will do everything in my power. And I've got a lot of reach with the community right now, but if we put this on the ballot and it gets voted down, that is the community telling us that having those 2 or 3 officers is not a priority. And we have to go by it. We did not give the community that opportunity to begin with. We didn't. And so now we are saying, hey, you know what? We didn't ask before. That was a mistake. We're going to go ahead and ask now. Are you okay with us spending your money that way? And if the community says yes, then we're golden. But if the community says no, it's not our place to say that it's a mistake to not have those 3 officers. Now, we can surely sit down and look at statistical data and show that crime goes up or whatever else. But it is not our job to tell community members that we are going to take their money and spend it on what we think is best. We have a budget that we go by, but this is an extra fee that we implemented. We said we need even more, and we didn't ask, we just took it. That's not right. Morally and ethically, that is not right.
I'll agree to disagree with you on part of that. And the other problem that you have, Derek, is that when you put this uncertainty in the police department, you're going to have officers that are starting to look for stability, and then we're going to start losing people, and then we have to try to rehire those people at a high risk and a cost, because I can't get the trained people that I have now. They still have to go to the academy, and so like I said, there's a lot of other parts and stuff that affect this vote, or this pushing us out to vote. And like I said, I'd like to have some stability in the department. That's not going to cause this issues and these problems. And I don't think that that's being good stewards of the community or the community's money either, by causing that unrest and perhaps people leaving and like I said, having to spend more money to bring them back.
Well, I mean, Chief, we're not being stewards of their money right now. We're being thieves of their money because we didn't ask. We just took it.
Mayor Clevenger.
I totally agree with you that yes, your employees, our police officers, they vote with their feet, right? And if they're not happy, if there is not stability, they will leave. They will leave. But that is a result of the previous council's actions on this matter, right? Now we're seeing what the long-reaching effects are of not getting the community voice when we should. It's not just one effect or 2 effect. We have 3rd and 4th order effects that are occurring right now. And one of those effects that is occurring right now is that there is a loss of stability in the department.
Okay, thank you for hearing me.
Gus,
I got a question. Ron, are you still there? Ron.
Yes, I'm here.
On all these meetings that we had on this fee and everything, how many people showed up?
So
15, 20, 25?
From memory, I'm just going to throw a number out there. I can't recall the exact. There were a number of meetings that were this was talked about, but it wasn't an action item. It was discussion or something of that nature, where there were people there.
How many people were there to discuss this fee?
To discuss the fee, I would say, and Chief, you were there, I'm going to say 20 to 30 at a meeting. Does that sound about right to you, Chief?
I would think 30 is high until after it went through and then it erupted.
Yeah, but at the hearings where we were talking, there was quite a number of people there. Do you think 20?
Yeah, I'd say at least 20.
I'd have to look at
That's
the
okay.
agendas.
Whatever number you want to use, it doesn't matter. My point is to blaming this previous council who volunteered and took all their time to do this is a bunch of crap. The other councilors, the last council we had that got recalled was based on what happened at the city. They don't show up. They don't give their opinion. They just sit there, and then after the game and the ball or the horse is out of the barn, oh, by God, that was a mistake. I'm tired of hearing about the old councils after all the time I know they put in stuff. Blame for the citizens to sit on their lazy fat butts and not come to a meeting and give them an idea what to do. The council did what they did based on what was going on right there. They weren't told to do anything, but to keep blaming them is a bunch of crap.
Jim, it is incumbent upon the council to encourage and advocate for community involvement. And if the community is not getting involved, that is the fault of the council. It's not the individual's fault. It's the fault of the council.
It's not the fault
It
of
is,
the
Jim.
council. The council
It
got
absolutely
the
is.
information out there. We talked about that for probably a year, that the fee was known by a year, and not one time did we, I would be easy to say, we didn't have 35 people show up.
And
so what
Jim,
the
we've
council
had more
does is
people.
They make a decision about whether it's important, but it's
We've
not
had
the
more
council's
people
fault.
discuss these two issues because we, as a council, reached out and communicated with them. We have all gone out of our way to communicate with the community. That didn't happen before, at least not effectively. Okay, whether we're tossing blame around or whatever, the fact of the matter is, I believe that we are taking the communication piece and doing it much more effectively than the previous council. Okay, and we are getting a lot of feedback on a lot of issues. Okay. When Colin Powell, when people stop coming to you with their problems, it is because they have either lost faith in you or they don't think that you can handle their problems. They don't think that you can fix them. And if the people are not getting involved, it is because the council has not created a culture that people want to be involved in. It is incumbent upon us to make sure the community is involved. We have to go out and make them want to be involved. That's part of our job. And if that's not happening, it's the council's fault, not the individual's fault.
I think a lot of what's lost in this is the fact that I think, I don't know, what is it, 95% of our council that we have in place at this time, whether they're appointed or elected, weren't around when we sat through hours of meetings where essentially we were told what the issues were and how we were expected to vote. And I think that's a huge reason why we're at the place that we're at now. I have a lot of respect for Ron, and from a management perspective, Ron has done amazing as far as turning the page and how we do things. But to me, this doesn't necessarily mean it's a management issue. It's a leadership issue, and it comes down to the council having leadership on these issues and communicating with the people that they represent. That's what it comes down to. I remember when I first got on council in 2009, there was very little dissension, very little debate on a lot of issues. We mostly went around the table and said, oh, do you agree with, Mayor White? Do you agree with what the city manager says? And that's what the mentality was, that you were either, if you're not with us, you're against us. And I think that is where, the issue lies. We need to, we're making these changes and they're important to our citizens, but it also comes from a perspective of our council having the leadership to communicate why these issues are important. Our management has been amazing, and I give Ron a lot of credit for, I think, being, more open and transparent, but it's also incumbent on the council itself to be open about these issues and to discuss them openly with citizens and to seek their input. We're their representatives, and that's what needs to happen. And, you know, we could talk about lazy asses and things like that for hours, but a lot of, you know, what I encountered, especially when I went door to door, was apathy. That's why people chose to not come to our meetings. That's why people didn't come to those meetings until the issue really had exploded. And I think that we need to like turn the page completely on that mentality. I don't care if we're discussing, you know, some, you know, random piddly franchise agreement, or if we're discussing a fee. We need to be open and honest with our citizens. And that's why, you know, the recall happened. That's why, you know, I got overwhelmingly supported by our community when I ran for council, because the desire, the hunger for having open conversations is there. And that should be something that we do from not just a management perspective, but from a leadership perspective. And that's what our job is as counselors. Otherwise, we have no business, you know, having these meetings. We have no business being, you know, representatives of our citizens if we don't encourage that open communication. That's the reality, folks.
Just to throw this out
That's what
there,
our job is.
You know, Jim, you and I generally get along. We've had beers together, but the comment about community members sitting on their fat butts and being lazy, a very similar comment was made about former councilor Kevin Crawford, and he received the largest majority of votes for someone to be removed out of council. That attitude is not something that we should be taking, and I would encourage you to maybe try and take a different view. Anyways, we've beat this issue quite a bit. Can we go ahead and take a vote on this, on whether we're going to put it on the ballot or not?
You need a motion, Eric.
I'm waiting. I don't make the motions.
I move that we send the public safety fee. Well, let me rephrase that. I move that we ask Administrator Harding to draft language that would send an advisory vote fee to our citizens to be voted upon in regards to the public safety fee.
We have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right.
I second it.
Go by roll call.
You're up, Colleen. We have a motion and a second.
Yep, I had to get unmuted, sorry. Okay, we'll take the vote now. Counselor Bedwell?
No.
Counselor Casperez?
Aye.
Counselor Case?
No.
Counselor Seha?
Yes.
Counselor Purdy?
No.
Counselor Sini?
No.
Mayor Clevenger?
Yes.
Okay, that is 3 yeses and 4 noes. Motion fails.
Before we move on from old business, for the people that are just listening, can't see this, Angie put a comment asking if before we move on from these 2 issues, is it too late to make a motion to bring back the marijuana issue in 2 years? That will be 5 years from the last public vote. Is that something that this council would consider? I mean, this is something that I think a lot of the comments were, now's not the right time, but maybe in the future. So to specifically, I guess, to those who voted no, would this be something that any of you would consider?
I would consider it, yes.
Okay. I saw Gus shake his head no. Della?
It would depend on public opinion at the time.
I think the intent is to discuss it and bring it back up to discuss putting it on the ballot 2 years from now.
So, Mayor, obviously, council can have that discussion. They can really have that discussion at any point on our yearly retreat. It's probably a good time to talk about that year's work program. That's one option. I don't know, were you looking for a positive vote now for?
I'm not necessarily looking for a vote. I'm just responding to Angie's comment. She asked me to read it to the group, and I think it is something that's good to have on the record, that at least for those that did want to see this back on the ballot, they have some hope that the council has agreed to discuss it later on down the road, and maybe it'll happen at that point in time. And to Councilor Purdy's point, now they have a general idea of how long they have to get their grassroots effort going and make sure that their voice is heard at that point in time. So I'm sorry, Della, did you, you said it was based on kind of public sentiment at the time?
Yes.
Larry, your thoughts?
Oh, sorry, I thought Angie was talking there.
Larry?
Yeah, I'm not sure where the background noise is coming from, but again, like Ron said, council can bring it up at any time in the future, and I don't see the point in picking an arbitrary date to put it back up at this point.
Okay. Well then, moving on. Next agenda item. I believe it's all you, Ron.
All right, old business. The next agenda item, or no, actually, this is new business, 6A. The next agenda item is a capital facilities plan proposal from West Tech Engineering. As council knows, we are under a MOA, which is a memorandum of agreement. It's a contract with the Department of Environmental Quality to do certain things with the intent over this 7-year agreement period, at the end of the 7 years, to have an ability to produce a higher quality effluent that's being discharged out to the creek. Now, one of the first stages of that is a capital facilities plan. That's a study to determine exactly what it is that we need to be able to do to meet this standard. Is it going to be a mechanical plant? Is it a modification of our current process? What are those things? As we've talked to council before, based on our professional input and our own experience, we feel like we're going to need to be able to put in a mechanical plant. We feel like that's where we'll have to go, but it's got to be studied. We've had some preliminary studies done by experts in the field to try to get them in to see were there modifications we could make to improve that water quality. And to date, we haven't been able to find anybody that had the magic bullet for us. So based on the MOA, by July, we have to enter a contract for a facilities plan. We're trying to do some of these things ahead of our schedule that are easier, like award the contract for the facility planning process and getting the facility plan done sooner. And the reason why we're trying to do that is because we're hoping that will buy us some goodwill when we get to a point where, let's say we have to go out and build a plant. We've got to figure out a way to fund that. We can have a little bit of an extension and a little bit more time so we can enter that process like the mayor was discussing earlier, where we could really go out and discuss this issue with our community and bring them along in this decision-making process. And so what we decided to do was to seek a contract with the city's contract engineer. That's our engineer of record. Under our agreements to do a contract with the city engineer, we don't have to go through a formal bidding process. And what that does is it saves us a couple of months. I've looked at the dollar amount. I've done quite a few capital facilities plan. This is on the lower end of ones that I've been involved with in the past. So I think it's a good value for what we're getting. And I just encourage council to support that so we can get a plan under our pocket. That plan will then give us some real solid information on where we go from here. And I'm happy to answer any questions from council on the award of this plan.
Anybody have questions? Crickets. All right. I guess no questions, Ron.
I move to approve of the proposal and contract for West Tech Engineering to complete a wastewater facility plan not to exceed $76,000 as presented by staff.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Go ahead by roll call.
Okay. Counselor Bedwell.
Yes.
Counselor Caceres.
Aye.
Counselor Case.
Yes.
Counselor Seha. Counselor Purdy.
Yes.
Yes.
Counselor Seany.
Yes.
Mayor Clevenger.
Yes.
That is a unanimous vote. Motion passes.
See, we can agree on some things.
I think we do good work. I think a robust debate is how we make good policy. So we are going to go ahead and move on to the city administrator report, if you're okay, Mayor.
Absolutely.
All right. I won't spend a lot of time on the police report and or the public works report, except to say they're pretty consistent with those typical reports. Generally, Steve, I'm not going to read it word for word, you have it, and they're available on our website, but Steve gives just a little report of their activities during that period of time, and the chief provides a count on police activities. I would say, I think our numbers are down a little bit, but a lot of people are in their homes, and so that's contributing to that a little bit, but otherwise I don't think that there's anything out of the ordinary in either of those reports. As far as the city administrator report, we did launch our city website today. I was going to go ahead and bring it up and demonstrate it, but if you'd like me to, I can do that. Otherwise, I can just go over some of the highlights on that.
It's a website. We're all intelligent human beings.
Okay. So the website allows for the language of the website to be changed. There's a database of languages there. It allows for people with disabilities to enlarge the text if they have a sight disability. A lot of functions on there. It's also mobile friendly, so people can use it with their mobile phone. And we really tried to include a lot of information there that the public could go in and access and provide that information at their fingertips. Now, right now, the ordinances are just in there by title, and they're searchable in the upper search bar. So if you go into the upper search bar and you type in a keyword, dog, anything that has the keyword dog, ordinances, minutes, council meeting, agendas, any of those things will come up in a list and you can look through them. Once we have our new ordinances adopted, they will be in there in chapter order or municipal code order, and then they'll be searchable just the ordinances by themselves. You'll still be everything on the website through the upper search bar. So that's one function that we're still working on. Otherwise, outside of some, features and user-friendly things that we'd like to add as time goes on, I think we pretty much hit the mark on everything that the council wanted. And I actually think the company that we used was really good and easy to work with. And I do want to highlight one of our staff members. Now, I will tell you that all of our staff provided information and was involved in meetings to organize and their departments and to get data and information for their departments. But one of my assistants, or our office assistants, Elena Turpin, was the lead on our website build. She's had some experience with that, knew how to speak the language. And she probably feels like she just ran a marathon, because the last 2 or 3 weeks, the pressure's been building to get this thing to launch. So she's done a great job. I just want to acknowledge her during this effort. And I hope the community goes on there. As we discussed earlier, unfortunately, we got our momentum got slowed down a little bit by the COVID-19 virus, and we've got planned out videos, we've got planned out presentations, we've got all kinds of great community outreach material. We just haven't been able to. It's been a little bit delayed, but it's on our work plan. We do plan on working on it throughout this year, and if there's other ideas about outreach platforms, the whole idea behind this new website, the whole idea behind videoing the council meetings, was reaching out to our community in a transparent platform. We've started to do surveys and polls. Surveys and polls are okay to kind of gauge a little bit of things from the community, but they're not kind of the end result. You kind of gauge the temperature, and then you do some work, and then bring that forward. But we're using all those tools that are at our disposal. We're actually looking at some software that would allow us to poll the community real time, and seeing how that might work in our community for some of these hot topic issues. So we got a lot of good stuff working, and we've got the website, I think, in a good place, at least for now. I did want to give the council a little bit of an update on COVID-19. I don't know if you've been following it, but I believe the governor is going to try to open up Marion County retail businesses on the 15th. I think she has a little press release out. I don't want to characterize positive for sure items. I think people should go read it for themselves, and I haven't completely digested all that material. Marion County did submit a plan to reopen businesses through phases. Some of the information in that plan I did raise a little bit of concerns about, for exactly the same reasons that we were discussing here. And that was, I'm just not sure how, just based on my experience in our community, if that was the right communication tempo or delivery as I would have preferred. And that's just, again, representing our community. But it was Marion County's plan, and they did what they did. I do have a few concerns, mainly around the infection rate that's occurring in Marion County. We're a hot spot. I don't know if anybody's been keeping up on those numbers. The state numbers were going down for a period of time. And as those numbers were going down, it seemed like Marion County infection numbers were going up. And in the last week, we've consistently posted between 13 and 21 positive infections a day. On Saturday, our number was 43 out of 71 through the entire state. Sunday we were at 13, and today we posted 17. And I just feel like Marion County is a bit of a hot spot, so I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned about the approach that everybody's taken. I'll probably try to put out some communication pieces from the city, just advice to businesses and consumers to, you know, they need to be responsible for themselves, because it doesn't necessarily mean every place that they go will necessarily follow the rules or have everything in place to protect them. They should assume that they need to really protect themselves. I do support opening businesses. I don't want it to sound like I don't support that. I think I'm not so sure that we should have ever, I don't know if I should say that. I support opening businesses, but I also support.
Say it, Ron. I won't tell on you.
I also support protecting our citizenry, and I get real concerned about our citizens. My intent right now is not to open City Hall immediately. Most cities, I've talked to a number of city managers, they do not plan on opening their lobbies to the public right away. They want to see what happens and then go from there. So I think the earliest I would be looking to open City Hall, unless you direct me to do otherwise, would probably be June 1st. But it's a fluid situation, and I would look at that as time goes on. Right now, we have spent as a city around $25,000 just addressing coronavirus things within operations. So that's things like the glass storefront that we're putting in, the PPE that we purchased 595 masks recently. We purchased some hand sanitizer. We purchased some different type of PPE for the police department. We purchased some digital thermometers for the officers, because they've got, through this entire thing, our police department have been on the front lines. They've still had to go out and be exposed to the public. And so we wanted to try to provide them some tools, at least to help protect themselves. And so I'll report back to you. My plan would be to report back to you at the next meeting with an update in May, our next meeting in May. But that's kind of where we are on that at this point. And I don't know if you have any questions.
Are we going to meet on Memorial Day?
Is that our next meeting?
Yes.
Oh, what is your pleasure?
I mean, are we really going to have anything to talk about? That's what it comes down to.
You know, we really are starting to ramp up a lot of our stuff, but I don't think there's anything critical. How about if we cancel that meeting, and if there's some urgent thing that appears that can't wait until the 8th, we could do a special meeting, but I think we're probably okay. You know, we're doing the Zoom meetings. I don't think it really matters if it's a special meeting or some other platform. But if you'd like to cancel it, if I get an acknowledgement from a number of you, that's what we can do.
I'm fine with that.
We also got the Corn Festival issue to discuss too, Ron, in some form.
Yeah, I've got it on my agenda.
Okay, so I definitely we should put that on the agenda for the next one. But you know, we have a little bit of time, and you know, if we look at shifting the dates, we'll have a little more time. So I think that can wait until the 8th or whatever it is.
Yeah, so, and I'll go over some of those things and you guys can provide me some direction. As far as our code update, our development ordinance is going to the Planning Commission on May 21. The Planning Commission has to go through a first review, and then it'll come to council at some point after that. But I expect that will be on your June 8th council meeting. It's basically an update. Everything that's in there is stuff that we have talked about as a group over the last couple of years. There shouldn't be any surprises. There are some things that we changed to make easier for businesses, I think. and development. So we've done a few changes there, but most of it is really clarification in organization. So the remainder of our codes, which are all legislative actions, they're not what we'd consider land use actions. Those will be coming to council in rapid order. They're all in legal review right now. The entire chapters from 1 to 9. And I don't expect that we'll bite those all off in one meeting. It'll be a series of meetings, but depending on the chapters, some had a lot of rewrites, others had minimum. And so, you know, one meeting we might do 2 or 3 chapters, the next meeting we might do 1. But those will be coming forward. So there's plenty of stuff going on there.
I did have a couple of questions about our COVID stuff, Ron.
Okay, I can take it now if you'd like.
I mean, you'd ask for questions. I can wait until you're done. I don't care either way.
No, I mean, I'm done with code updates.
Okay. As far as the PPE, you know, coming from medical background, I don't know what all training the police department gets when they're in academy, but has anyone taken the time to go over with the police department and with our city employees the proper way to wear these things, the proper way to don and doff, you know, PPE, so that you are not cross-contaminating? Or are we just throwing gloves and masks at them and saying, have fun?
No, we've actually, Derek put out, went over our policies and everything else on that, and had them sign acknowledgements that they've read them and they understand them. You know, we've gone over it. You know, we're sanitizing between each shifts. They have to fill out a sheet that says they've done that, and they're doing that same thing on City Hall side. So we're make sure that everybody understands and they're doing it the proper way. And we get the bloodborne pathogen training every year.
Yeah.
So like I said, I think we're pretty well on top of that in terms of what we're doing.
Most of us have done bloodborne pathogen training. The other thing that we're doing is
well, COVID's not, I mean, it can be bloodborne, but it's not specific.
Right, but this is you know,
it's very similar the way that you'd handle that. The regular staff, we have a safety committee meeting, which we hold an all staff meeting. There's a safety committee that convenes and goes over different issues like this. And then they do a presentation, and I believe it's Wednesday. I think this Wednesday is our safety and all staff meeting. And so we'll go over that before we open up to the public. I mean, the Public Works has that training because they do hazmat, you know, they do all that stuff. Before we open our City Hall lobby, we will do a specific training with those staff members on interacting with the public. And we did that. We did a training before we closed down the lobby to the public, and we installed protocols on how staff were to handle each situation. And so, I mean, outside of doing, you know, a very detailed, we haven't done like a detailed medical staff level training.
I mean, and they're not setting up sterile fields or any crap like that. Like, we're just talking about, I mean, you see kids over at Safeway that are wearing their masks with their nose hanging out
on their chin.
They're wiping their gloves all over their face. Like, come on. And then the second thing I had was just, you know, letting the council know that you and I had talked as far as, you know, there are a lot of cities that are basically saying, hey, if businesses want to open up, we're not going to stop them. And so Ron and I did have a conversation about, hey, you know, what are we looking at doing as a city? Are we going to take a stance on this? You know, honestly, if the gym opens up tomorrow, I probably wouldn't tell on them. But at the same time, you know, this is something that really does, you know, fall into the realm of our PD. And, you know, nobody has any desire to try and micromanage the chief. He will do a much better job than Ron and I combined. So what's the point?
Well, and to answer your point, Derek, is stuff, we have to follow the governor's executive order.
Yeah.
But unless we get a complaint and we, you know, but we've got handed down to us, even from the state police and the executive order and all that, is we're not going to go out and arrest anybody or cite anybody. We might go and talk to them and say, this is executive order, this is what it's for.
Yeah.
And might have to do a report, but we're not looking out to go out to arrest anybody or try to shut anybody down.
Mhm.
And I feel for
Yeah.
the businesses.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
do.
Yeah,
And that's my concern. I mean,
yeah.
you know, I've had multiple business owners try and reach out to me for information on when we're going to be opening back up. And for the most part, I've tried to avoid the conversation because it sucks saying I have no idea.
Well, I'm hoping Friday will bring an end to that.
I asked this actually. I've been working with the with Marion County at a community representation level with their reopen plan for a couple of weeks, and I actually asked this question because of a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't feel like I think that it's our job to communicate with the community about state and initiatives and federal initiatives. I feel strongly that I don't think we should be the person that's implementing those restrictions or levels of restrictions at our level. You know, these types of mandates that come down from above, outside of protecting public safety.
Yeah.
When they're public safety related. So I did ask the question at the county meeting about, okay, so you've put these guidelines in place for certain businesses to open. I feel like when you say businesses, you know, 1, 2, and 3 can open, everybody's going to open.
Yeah.
I don't.
How do you really decide who gets to open and who doesn't? Unless you
Well, and my feedback there was what we should have been, what I would have thought about, and you know, whether I have an opinion that matters or not, I would have thought about, here's the things that you need to do to be able to safely do business. And I would have rather have seen us say, if you can do A, B, and C as part of your business, with a limitation of whatever, 20 people or whatever, then your business can open at this time. If you can't do A, B, and C, then you need to wait till phase 2 type thing. I would have rather seen something like that. But I did ask the question, and the answer was there's just not the resources to go out and check to see if businesses are doing this.
Well, I mean, Marion County doesn't even have the phase 1 application in yet. So, I mean, we've got a ways to go regardless.
Well, but as I understand the last email I got, the governor was going to issue an executive order. She may already have. I didn't have a chance today. I've been going from start to finish, but perhaps getting on there and looking at that executive order today. I'll send the email out to you guys, and maybe we can get multiple eyes on it. But anyway, the other thing is there's a staffing issue I thought I would bring up with the council. So we don't have a internal union here at the city. What we do is just kind of we have an internal collective bargaining agreement with our staff. There's not a formal contract, but that's how we've conducted business. And so we agreed last year, council agreed to do instead of doing this staffing benefit analysis every year, we would do it on a 3-year rotation. So it will be next year when we have to tackle that again. But there are some issues that come up. And one issue is this year we had a vacancy in an entry-level public works position. And so it was a Public Works 1, and we actually ended up hiring somebody with many years of Public Works experience. As a matter of fact, I think he was the pseudo Public Works director in another smaller city, so had a lot of experience. We hired him at the top step of Public Works 1. Public Works 1 is somebody who's never been in public works before, just somebody off the street. And I believe he took a pay cut to come to work for us at the top step, which means there's no forward mobility. And one of the things that I said when I hired him is, I can only hire you at a Public Works 1 because that's the only authorization I have. But during our budget cycle, I will see if council's open to allowing to convert that position to a Public Works 2 position. Now, it doesn't really have a budgetary impact. Wouldn't really change his salary that much, but what it does give him is forward momentums.
Yeah.
In other words, he stepped out at 7 in a Public Works 1, and if he went to a Public Works 2, he would be at like a 4. I think the impact is $60 to $80 a month. It's pretty minimum, but I just wanted to see if that's something council was interested in doing. You were not making a decision tonight. It just affects how we present that tomorrow to the budget committee.
I mean, keeping employees happy and paying people what they're worth is extremely important. So yeah.
Yeah, I would support it. Again, giving somebody momentum in their job is always a good thing. I'm well aware of what it's like to be topped out for years at a time, and it's not any fun.
Sucks.
Okay, so sounds like some positive on that.
Yep.
I'll go ahead and move that forward. The other issue with staffing, and we don't have to talk about it right now, but just because we're on the topic with council, our medical provider, CIS, is making some changes to the plans that we have. And, you know, they just make these changes. They just get rid of one plan and create another one. And as of January 1, the increased out-of-pocket expense to the employees is going up fairly significantly. So basically, coverage goes down, out-of-pocket expense goes up. We're studying that right now to look for alternatives, if there's better group rates or policies or things like that that we can look at. Even though, again, this isn't a staffing year to look at these things. Typically, this would be done on the 3rd year. CIS changed the plan this year.
Yeah.
And so it takes effect in January automatically if we don't make a change. So we will look at that throughout the year at a staff level and see if we have any alternative suggestions between now and January 1. But I just wanted to make council aware of that change. I think our rates went up another 9% this year. I want to say, I could look in our budget book, it's highlighted in there. Our rates did go up a little bit, and now they're going to change that coverage quite a little bit. Before it was just an increase in rates, and now it's an increase in rates and a lowering of coverage. So it's hard because, you know, you get a 4% increase or 2.5% COLA increase, and then a 9%, you know, or 10% out-of-pocket match increase. So you're kind of going backwards anytime they do these things from a staffing level. But anyway, we will look at that, just an FYI.
Cool.
And then Corn Festival. Well, let's talk about other events. I have canceled the Superhero Carnival for June.
Quick, Ron, we're creeping up just over 2 hours. Does anybody need to take a break?
I'm good.
My legs are a little restless, but I've popped up intermittently. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
I'm fine.
Let's keep moving.
Superhero Carnival, we have canceled that. There's no way we can do, even without the governor's recent executive order, we just can't, there's no way we can execute it. So we did cancel that. Currently, the governor's executive order is canceling all fairs and festivals and large mass gatherings through the end of September. Basically, what she said is, we're not going to allow any of those things until there's a vaccine. And then she said the end of September. The reason why she gave that date is she wanted to close the door on the state fair. I don't believe we're going to see a change in that policy. So then that brings us to the Corn Festival. And
One clarification on that. It was vaccine or an effective treatment program, which we also don't have. So
Yeah.
there is another window of opportunity there if an effective treatment program pops up. I know there's a couple that are under tests right now with Resdemivir and a couple other antiviral drugs, but even with that, it's probably still a ways down the road.
Yeah. I'm a little concerned about this because with that announcement, we lost $15,000 worth of sponsorship, which is what we had for the event. I feel like, I mean, I could call and ask, but I kind of feel like we're committed to the corn. On April 15th, it was planned to be, or on August 15th, it was planned to be harvested at that time, so it was planted early.
Go door to door handing out bags of corn, I guess.
Well, and here was our thought. It just doesn't seem realistic that we're going to be able to do a large event this year. Our thought was doing more of a virtual event, calling it the Harvest Festival, and doing exactly what you said, coming up with a number of ways to, and maybe some fun ways of distributing this 26-ton corn out to our community.
I don't know if there's a trademark on Harvest Fest because friggin' Sublimity does it, whatever. But yeah,
well, we'll call it Corn Fest or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Whatever. I just don't know that we're going to be able to execute an event. Obviously I need guidance from you guys. We have great plans. I did, prior to all of this occurring, I did secure an agreement with the David Wu, who owns the Squeeze Inn, and that was going to be the location of a Friday event. That was all sponsored by him. There was very little the city had to do to execute that. And we had a couple of other things in the works. We had some changes. We'd already started to make some changes to how we would execute the event. But based on where we are today with everything else canceling, on one hand, I'm really bummed because we had 4 or 5 superior events in the works this year with large crowds, and it's a huge deflator of our momentum. On the other hand, I'm just not sure how we get around this. I
think in regards to the Corn Festival, let's set up a work meeting on that specifically. I think we need to try and develop at least 3 or 4 different courses of action and try and go from there. Let's see about setting up a meeting specifically for the Corn Festival and see if there's something we can do to correct this.
Okay.
I agree.
Do you guys want to shoot me ideas and then we can go from there?
Sure.
Or how do you want to proceed?
I think a work session is warranted, Ron and Mayor. I agree 100%. And, don't get me wrong, I'm incredibly concerned about people's safety, and making sure that everybody's taken care of. But, I don't want us, I think the inclination is for us to join a list of other really awesome things canceling. And if it means that we're having the damn festival in November, or October, I would rather have it during that time and maybe distribute the corn when it's available. I want us to look into alternatives because, people are upset, obviously, and this is out of our hands. I mean, this whole situation's out of our hands. But I think that if they know that we're, working on their behalf to try to have something that has a tangible positive effect on them, as well as maybe potentially would, help our small businesses, I think that is really what they're looking for. Because obviously we can't question the economic impacts of the Corn Festival and the positive, cultural feeling it brings to our community. So I think us trying to figure out an alternative would be, I think, the best idea, honestly.
Let's get some email dialogue going back and forth, and then we'll set up a meeting to discuss this. Well, and we can just do what we usually do: set up the Survey Monkey poll or whatever. We'll figure out a date.
Yeah, so we're not going to have any revenue coming in from the festival. So there's the cost of the corn is right now a debit.
Yeah.
That will be in our budget for next year. And I guess my question is do you want me to see if there's the possibility of canceling that, or do you feel like just the city's reputation isn't even worth the ask?
I mean, this is the second year we've used that seller. He's been good to us. Everybody raved about the corn. I know it sucks to eat the cost. We can find a way to do something with it, but let's keep that relationship with this seller and not cause any more damage to the corn festival.
Yeah, so I believe if estimates are right, it's somewhere, and of course, we get the corn by weight. So this could vary quite a little bit because we're talking about a large quantity. But the estimate is somewhere around 50,000 ears of corn. And so I mean, if we distributed a dozen ears of corn to every house, that's only 15,000 ears of corn. So we could do.
We'll figure out something.
We could do stuff with we could take more to every house. We could do something with the food bank.
Ron, let's talk about it at the work meeting.
Yeah, I think there's things
we're already going on 2 hours. Let's talk about it at the work meeting.
So I'm in agreement that we can look at different alternatives. I don't see any harm in having a conversation with the grower to see what their options are. I don't know the grower, but he may be willing to let the city out of that contract without hesitation. I don't see it as a problem to have a conversation with him. One thing I do want to be cautious of is at this point, it doesn't sound like we're going to be able to have the traditional events. So I would be cautious of putting any additional city funds out there to, engage vendors or any other expenses that we're not going to be able to come through with in the end. So,
well, and
with the work session as well.
Well, and that's the issue is securing. If we were securing entertainment, that money's not coming back to us. There's a lot of expenses we have to kind of incur up front that isn't coming back to us. And I think the governor's pretty much put the nail in the coffin of a summer event. Now the final thing would be Christmas in the Park, which, as you guys know, is in December, which I'm growing a little concerned about just based on the posturing of everything else that's going on. Because these events for the city, I don't know if you guys, we don't have a specific number of people, but I have to say Christmas in the Park was 3,000 plus people last year. I don't know if that number seems reasonable to you guys or not, but just knowing the things that we were distributing and how many of them, it seems like it was fairly close to that number. They're talking about groups of 50. When they talk about large groups in late fall, they're talking about groups of 250. So I'm concerned about all of those. But yeah, if you want to put a work session together, fine with me.
Let's talk about it, Ron.
Do you guys want that to be an entire council work session? Can we do that sooner rather than later? Are you okay with that?
Yes.
If I can get that set up maybe next week.
Yeah, I think it'd be wise to do sooner than later.
Yep, sooner rather than later. Okay, that's our plan. Unless you have additional questions for me, that's all I have for my report. The mayor may have taken just a little break.
Dogs must be fighting again.
Must be operating off of our energy from this meeting. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Chief.
Oh,
Thank you, Council.
Lost you guys for a second there. I miss anything important?
Nope.
Ron said he's done. He's waiting for you to adjourn us.
Okay, cool. Real quick, like everybody knows, my full-time employment these days is contracting over in Africa. Originally, the plan was for me to head back to Africa on the 22nd of May. Obviously, that's up in the air right now. Everything is dependent on the U.S. embassies in Africa opening back up. But I've already been given word that, if they open back up, it'll be short notice, turn around and leave. Obviously, I'll make sure and give the council a heads up. I am not anticipating them opening up anytime soon. Africa, due to their economic status, does not have quite as much travel as some of these other countries and continents. And so they are really just now kind of hitting the COVID bubble. So it could potentially be, I may not go anywhere for the entire summer, but obviously I will keep the council apprised of what's happening. Anybody else have anything for good of the order or anything? All right, well, if not, it is 9:20 and we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, council.
All right, everybody have a good one.
Angie.